What's up everybody, part 1B is here. If you haven't seen part 1A, link in the description or up here. I have 25 more 3DS exclusives, many of which are hidden gems, to show you. So buckle up, get your wishlist ready. Welcome to the channel, this is From the Void. Okay, just one real quick thing I need to address that I didn't before. Although the eShop stores will only close for purchases in late March 2023, the ability to add funds using your credit card on the 3DS and Wii U will be removed way earlier in May 23rd, 2022. And in August 29th, 2022, they will remove the ability for us to redeem eShop cards for funds. However, one final method for adding funds will remain. If you have a Switch with the same Nintendo account as your Wii U and 3DS, you can add funds through the Switch as normal, and that will be the only way to add funds to the 3DS and Wii U after August 29th. Just remember to use any added funds before late March 2023. Also, you need to have linked your accounts on those systems to be able to do that. Needless to be said, this sucks for anyone who doesn't own a Switch, and it's a huge slap in their face, and Nintendo should be ashamed. They should at least have made the dates for credit cards and eShop cards coincide with the closure. This is awful. And that's the remaining news I had to cover. Now get ready for 25 games. Most of them are total hidden gems. I dug a seriously deep hole this time. I almost couldn't find my way out of it. I started exploring the DSiWare stuff. There will be 3 of them here, and one is incredible, simply incredible. And I have only dipped my toes on all of this. There is a lot left to cover, so you can expect more videos. Next, the Wii U and more 3DS stuff later. Also, I'll be detailing how many blocks of space each game takes on your 3DS, so you can plan accordingly. For the games in the previous video, I'll include their digital size in the description. So here we go, hope you enjoy. This time we must begin with the fast and awesome AiRace series. There are 2 games on this series on the 3DS, AiRace Speed and AiRace Xeno, and they're both badass. Remember the original Star Fox on the SNES, when it put you on the tunnel with obstacles coming your way and you had to steer carefully, and how that felt awesome? It did for me anyway. Yeah, so this is that, but amped up to 11 in all directions. These games are fast as hell. The main thing it does to evolve this type of game and make it a lot more fun is removing the instant death from touching the walls in the tunnels. Instead, you scrape the walls, which causes damage that will kill you only if you rub against the walls for too long. This is great because it would be impossible to keep at these speeds otherwise. There are of course plenty of obstacles that destroy you instantly, but not the tunnel walls. AiRace Xeno has more alien-like environments and is even harder than Speed, but both provide great enjoyment and a tough challenge for completionists who will try the gold star in all levels. The games are short, with only a few stages each, but they are also the cheapest entries on the list. Speed costs $349 and Xeno is even cheaper at $299. Speed takes 809 blocks on your 3DS, while Xeno takes 781. These are 3DS digital only exclusives. In the previous video, I talked about the 2 3DS exclusive Mario vs Donkey Kong games, Tipping Stars and Minis on the Move, but there is another one on the series, and this time it's a DSiWare original title, Mario vs Donkey Kong Minis March Again. This is the third game on the series between March of the Minis and Miniland Mayhem. This had already moved on from the transition phase we got on March of the Minis. Thankfully, we now have no control over the minis after we ordered them to March, which is a great thing because believe me, I got a migraine from trying to control those minis in that game. In this one, you concentrate on controlling the environment, creating a path for the minis to collect all the collectibles and reach the door. The series will further improve on Miniland Mayhem, but this one is great as well. Plus, it allows you to create your own levels, which is a nice addition. It received great scores from critics and I agree. It's an excellent title to include in your 3DS and it goes for the not so expensive price of $7.99 and occupies only 117 blocks. Next is deceiving Unchained Blades. At first glance, you may think that this is gonna be another average dungeon crawler, and there is no shortage of those. But this game is deceiving like that. Don't get me wrong, this is still a game for more hardcore RPG fans, like most dungeon crawlers tend to be, but it has a bunch of important aspects to offer that few others do in this particular dungeon crawler genre. First, a lot of big names in the industry worked on this, including Nobuo Uematsu, who made a few tracks, and each main character was drawn by a different famous manga or anime artists in Japan, which is really cool. Second, there is a big emphasis on character development and story, even though the protagonist is initially very unlikable. Also, the battles may have so many enemies at once that they take up 3 screens, which affects your decision making and makes each encounter feel very eventful, especially in the beginning. Another interesting aspect is that there is a lot of thought put into the dungeons designs, beyond just being maze-like and challenging, but I'll leave it at that because it's probably a spoiler to reveal why that is. You can also capture enemies to add to your party, and each character can have up to 4 monsters, and they all act automatically to aid the team during the battles, so that's also pretty cool. This game is much more interesting than it may seem at first, and a great one to have on your 3DS. Give it a go if you're into RPGs and don't mind some grinding. It's not very expensive, going for $14.99, and it takes 4,176 blocks of space. Now the second DSiWare 3DS exclusive on the list, and this one was made by WayForward, so you know it's quality. Mighty Milky Way. Okay, this is on the same series as Mighty Flip Champs, which is also available on the 3DS, but that one made it to the PSP, Vita and PlayStation 3. And gameplay-wise, both titles are completely different, but both are excellent titles, so you may consider looking up Mighty Flip Champs too, and I plan on covering it in the future as well. Mighty Milky Way is a platformer with a fantastic gimmick. The main protagonist is Luna, an alien French lady. Seriously, she speaks French all the time. She's great. I love her. But we have very limited control over her. All we can do is make her stop or walk at 3 different speeds by pushing left and right with the circle pad. And that's it. We can't even turn her the other way. But by tapping the planets with the stylus, we make them pulse, which sends Luna floating away in space. She will be attracted by the gravitational pull of other planets, and by pressing and holding the stylus in space, you can create a planet for her to land on. While spending the candy, you find scattered around. Mighty Milky Way has a great gameplay that makes this an absolutely unique platformer, and I can't believe that this series didn't continue on, cause this is so much fun. It also received universally high scores. It costs mere $7.99 and is totally worth that, so pick it up. It is of course not heavy at all, occupying only 88 blocks of space. Next is spectacular strategy RPG Stella Glow. I realize there will be people who will not want to touch this because of the chibi character sprites in battle, but if you're a fan of tactical RPGs, make no mistake, this is one of the absolute best offerings on the 3DS for sure, and an excellent title overall. Also, as a huge fan of this composer, I will always highlight when a game has music by Yasunori Mitsuda from Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross fame, so that should also perk your ears to this game. Now, even though Stella Glow is filled to the brim with RPG tropes, like yet another amnesiac main character, and the first 5 to 10 minutes are kinda slow, the story here is one of the best aspects of this game for sure. It picks up right after the initial 10 minutes, and it develops a great pacing, remaining interesting throughout the game's entire duration. There is a whole musical setting which is quite interesting, although the witch tuning idea can come off as weird and quirky in the beginning, but it's handled in good taste and becomes enjoyable very early on. The battle system is absolutely solid. It doesn't introduce anything too unique, but the amount of abilities, the special condition challenges in each mission, and the really well balanced difficulty keeps the battle engaging during the entire game. So we got a whole package of excellency with Stella Glow, with only minor issues keeping it from a 10 out of 10, but this is no less than a 9 for sure, and as such I think this is a hidden gem. So I really wanted to include this on the list because of this game's quality, the fact that it's a 3DS exclusive, and that there is a big discrepancy between physical and digital prices. It's going for no less than $54 for the physical as per price charting, while the digital sits at $19.99, which is a very fair price for Stella Glow. It occupies 11,711 blocks on the 3DS. Next, a very obscure and unexpected over-the-shoulder third-person shooter exclusive to the 3DS, Ironfall Invasion. Now, right off the bat, I will acknowledge the fact that this game got mixed reviews by critics and players alike, and there are two reasons for that. First, the fact that without a new 3DS model or a circle pad for the regular model, the gameplay suffers considerably because of the lack of a second analog stick. But trust me, if you have the new model 3DS or a circle pad Pro, the game allows for a perfectly functional gameplay. It's actually surprisingly good. The real drawback to me is that this game suffers from a severe case of generic disease. Everything is generic. The character you control is pulled straight from Gears of War, but removing any trace of personality. The alien enemies are very dumb looking, and the campaign is short and uninspired. On the other hand, the multiplayer is actually quite enjoyable, and I was surprised to find lots of other players on a Monday morning. The sessions were set within seconds and everything ran smoothly. Plus there is a lot to unlock by playing the multiplayer, like new characters and weapons. Ironfall Invasion is free to download, and by doing so you can demo both the campaign as well as the multiplayer before deciding to buy both bundled for $19.98 or $9.99 separately. The whole thing occupies 3,852 blocks on your 3DS. This is certainly a unique offering in the 3DS that I can see many opting to have installed, even though the game doesn't offer anything new compared to third-person shooters in other systems. This is a digital-only 3DS exclusive. You think you saw it all when it comes to video games? Think again, because this one is unbelievable. Aero Porter. This game was made by Level 5, so you know it must have something going on for it. And I wanna know who the hell came up with this idea and how did they convince their superiors to go on with it? Cause in this game, you are a luggage sorting clerk at an airport responsible for loading the correct luggage to the correct flights. I told you, unbelievable. And they made a very fun game out of this concept. I am out of belief. So this is how it works. See the 3 circle conveyor belts? Each one is for a particular flight, but all the luggage comes in at the top. So you press R to lower the ramp so that the luggage falls to the belt below, and L does the opposite. But this makes all ramps lower, so you gotta watch out. And at times you need to lower a ramp to the underground to get the fuel to the energy tank for the conveyor belts. So it soon becomes a task and a half to juggle all the luggage. Plus, you also order the flights to take off once all the cases have been loaded. It's just incredible how much fun a game based on a stressful job like this can be. I need more words for unbelievable here. Let's see. Inconceivable. Okay, that's a good one. This game is inconceivable. Pick it up please for mere $4.99, which is totally worth it, and have yourself one of the less likely games to exist right next to Papers, Please. It won't take much space at all on your 3DS, occupying mere 266 blocks, and this is an unimaginable 3DS digital only exclusive. Next, Chain Blaster. Okay, this looks like your typical old school arcade shooter, but it introduces a simple thing that sets it apart and makes it all the more enjoyable. You have an energy meter that you fill up by killing enemies, pretty standard stuff, but by pressing B, you shoot a bomb that has a ripple quality to it, as it becomes a bubble once it connects to an enemy, and it propagates to however many enemies are in proximity to one another. One bubble potentially creates dozens of other smaller bubbles, so if you use this correctly, you'll kill dozens of enemies and replenish your energy immediately, allowing to use this once again. I've never seen a ripple effect weapon like this outside of this game, and it's a great idea that makes the moment-to-moment gameplay in Chain Blaster feel fantastic. It's amazing how this one aspect enhances a simple game like this. The boss encounters are another highlight, increasing the challenge significantly. The campaign is short and not super hard, but it opens advanced mode after finishing it, which ramps up the difficulty, so there is a lot of meat in this game. Given that Chain Blaster is not expensive at $6.99, the bang for buck here is really high for fans of shoot 'em ups. It occupies mere 166 blocks on your 3DS. This one is another surprisingly great game that I think no one knows about. Jet Rocket 2: The Wrath of the Taikai. I believe this got buried into the unknown pits of the 3DS library because of the way it looks and the name of the game. I bet a lot of people figured it's just a mobile phone endless runner type like Jetpack Joyride or something, but it's absolutely not, and rather an incredibly competent platformer to stand tall even against the fierce competition on the 3DS. At first I was like, yeah, okay, fun platformer, jump with A, roll dash with B, jump and roll upwards with AB. Cool, I dig it. Then the game went like, take this item here, get yourself 5 jet propulsions and press Y. I was like, wow, okay, this changes things a bit. It's a lot of fun to find collectibles with this. Cool, I'm definitely featuring this in the video. Then when I got to the second stage, they actually turned the game into a 3D platformer in a real seamless way, and I was blown away. Wow, this is really excellent. And it kept going. There are jet ski sections. They're not fantastic or anything, but a fun change of pace. And the only issue is that this is yet another case of generic disease. The art design is very bland, and so is the music. It's also kinda short, but inexpensive at $8.99, exclusive to the 3DS and digital only. It's very much worth that. A fine platformer with great level design for sure. It occupies 567 blocks. Next, a series with loads of entries exclusive to the 3DS, Shin Megami Tensei. are 8 entries on this series exclusive to the 3DS. 8. I'm covering only 6 of them because the 2 Persona Q games I don't have. And guess what? They're all expensive. I'm not gonna go into a whole lot of detail about each one, otherwise we would be talking about Megami Tensei for 15 minutes straight. So let's go, let's start with the lesser known ones. First is Devil Summoner Soul Hackers. They have just announced the sequel to this one, simply called Soul Hackers 2. So this may also rise in price a lot, especially since the only version ever made available to the West is this 3DS remake. This has a typical SMT gameplay with the dungeon crawling and demon recruiting. The setting is cyberpunky, including the Matrix-like Paradigm X virtual space, and it's impressive how well made these settings are in SMT games, especially considering how different they are from each other. Soul Hackers is $19.99 digitally, while the physical is $60 at least as per price charting, but the cheapest complete in-box eBay offering I found was $90. Soul Hackers takes 14,798 blocks of space on your 3DS. Moving on to the 2 Devil Survivor remakes, Overclocked and 2 Record Breaker. These are a fine change of pace for the Mega 10 series, as they mix in quite an interesting way strategy grid-based RPG for the positioning and traditional turn-based RPG for the actual combat. I really like the look and feel of the battles in these 2 games. The stories are also great, going to some disturbing places, especially in 2, and both add new story segments compared to their vanilla versions. These are excellent tactical RPGs, both of them, that are going for high prices for their physical versions. Overclocked is going for at least $61 and Record Breaker for $56, so $19.99 each digitally is looking way more attractive. Overclocked takes 9,188 blocks, while Record Breaker takes 22,808. Now, my absolute favorite Megami Tensei game ever, Strange Journey Redux. This game is not connected to any other game in the franchise, so it's a great place for newcomers to start. And the setting here is fantastic. Humanity is on the brink of climatic apocalypse, and a time-space anomaly shows up in the South Pole. So a secret team of specialists is sent down there and all hell breaks loose. This expedition makes for a really interesting story. It is truly a strange journey that kept me entertained for the game's whole duration. Gameplay-wise, it's similar to most SMT games, lots of dungeon crawling in first person, demon killing and recruiting, and a deep and satisfying turn-based combat that will require you to do all sorts of decisions in and out of combat. Fantastic game, among the best RPGs, period. But it's relatively expensive at $39.99 digitally, while the physical copy goes for at least $45 as per price charting, but good luck finding one at that price, because on eBay the cheapest I found was $67 plus shipping. This game takes 13,669 blocks of space. Then there is Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. These are mainline entries exclusive to the 3DS, much like SMT 5 is exclusive to the Switch. These are fantastic games with yet another great setting, for sure one of the best in the whole franchise. It's at the same time post-apocalyptic and feudal. You control a samurai living in Mikado, a medieval city on top of a dome created to protect Tokyo from obliteration when pretty much the apocalypse happened, as demons and angels invaded. How crazy is that? Battles are regular turn-based with the recruiting demons as usual, but this time you have other 3 human allies controlled by AI to help you with assists during battle. Navigation is different from the other games on this list, as it's in third person in 3D environments, which makes this game very impressive on the 3DS. And 4 Apocalypse is pretty much more of the same gameplay wise, while the story takes place concurrently to the end of the story in 4 with a new protagonist. Both are fantastic games. 4 goes for $50 physically, while Apocalypse is $76 as per price charting. Meanwhile, the digitals are way less expensive, with 4 going for $19.99 and Apocalypse $29.99. 4 takes 14,337 and Apocalypse 13,747 blocks of space. Now, the other Kirby game I shamefully omitted from my previous video, and it's the best one of them, Kirby Blowout Blast. So this is less of a platformer and more of an action game than traditional Kirby, with an emphasis on being fast. The enemy patterns and spawns will force you to think fast and decide which enemies to swallow and which to kill by spitting the others out. If you swallow multiple enemies or one big one, you will spit out a more powerful attack that will hit multiple enemies. They removed the copy abilities in favor of this mechanic and it works pretty well. It's undoubtedly a fun game that will be challenging, especially if you decide to 100% complete it. It's also very short if you don't. Fantastic game for sure right here, and not expensive at all at $6.99, and totally worth that price. It occupies 754 blocks and is a 3DS digital only exclusive. Okay, now the one I was talking about, that is an incredible DSiWare hidden gem, and it's published and co-developed by Nintendo. This is X-Scape. Yeah, almost no one in the planet knows about this, and it's a Nintendo game. This is a sequel to X, the game that gave its developers a job at Nintendo to make Star Fox, so I should have caught your attention by now. By the way, X-Scape is known in Europe by another name, 3D Space Tank, so if you have an European 3DS, probably search for that. Way worse name in my opinion, but anyway. So this game is similar to Star Fox in many ways, and I'll be clear right now that the control scheme is difficult and will require a patient player, okay? You use the stylus to do everything except shooting, which you do by pressing any button. By touching the top of the screen, you go forward, while touching the sides turn your spacecraft, and the bottom goes in reverse. To aim, you touch the middle section, and doing a side stroke with the stylus puts you on strafe mode for focused combat. Again, this is a hard to get control scheme, but allows for some incredible freedom, which makes this game very impressive for its time on the DS. This is a full-on adventure with a huge amount of planets to explore, a long campaign, and a wide variety of missions. There are flying segments that transform the game into a tunnel racer against the clock, which are a very cool change of pace. But the bulk of the game is the free-roaming missions in the planets. Needless to say, this game looks stunning, with a Virtual Boy-inspired visual, but changing the color palette for each planet you visit. It's all very impressive. This game got really high scores, you can look it up. This is a treasured hidden gem that deserves so much more recognition, but unfortunately right now it's deep down the void of forgetfulness. So let's do our part and bring this one out from the void for $7.99. It's a digital only and exclusive to the 3DS, at least officially, because they already removed our option to buy this on the DS, and soon it will be gone for good. It occupies mere 126 blocks on your 3DS. Okay, this one is as fun as it is unknown. Alien on the Run. Despite the name suffering from generic disease, which I am sure didn't help putting this in anyone's radar, the game is fantastic. All other aspects of it are not generic, luckily, especially the gameplay. The premise is as straightforward as the title. You are an alien trying to escape this spaceship, that's it. You do so with the quirkiest mechanism in this entire list. They call it fever action. It is awesome. Basically, the alien leap dashes forward when you press and hold B, and once you let go of it, he'll do the fever thing and destroy a tractor beam, which are these orangey yellow glowing circles that would otherwise pull him upward and give you a game over. Every time he does it, he strikes a pose for a second, and there are hundreds of them. This game is quite humorous. So the alien must run through each stage, clearing the orange tractor beams for extra seconds, while avoiding the purple ones that are unfavorable, as well as engaging in fistfights with robots, all in the hopes of getting his hands on the chili sauce bottles, which he will consume and then do this. Yeah, unfortunately, each time his jackass friends throw him back to the spaceship in orbit, those jerks. So it's back to more stages filled with increasingly devious traps like ice and conveyor belts and much more. This game is guaranteed fun, and for the measly price of $3.99, this is an absolute must buy. Pick it up now. It occupies mere 162 blocks on your 3DS, which is nothing. And this is yet another 3DS digital only exclusive. Next is an excellent game from Game Freak that is not Pokemon, and this one is maxed out in levels of quirkiness. Pocket Card Jockey. This effectively mixes horse races with solitaire and drawing lines, and it makes a fun, funny, addictive, and immensely charming experience. Kudos to Game Freak for doing something so out of the ordinary. The story is thoroughly humorous and creates a completely nonsensical explanation for why succeeding at playing solitaire makes the horse gain more points to be used to help it position itself, which will in turn give it more enthusiasm in the home stretch, where it's all or nothing and there is a fun twist in the gameplay. It's awesome. This game is full of stats and variables to take into consideration, but it never becomes boring because you're always doing something entertaining at each step. It also has plenty of luck-based aspects, so it can become frustrating towards the end, but nonetheless a fantastic game, a great time waster that will last you upwards of 20 hours, and you can go on for way more than that if you want, and that will make the $6.99 price tag feel like a bargain. Pocket Card Jockey takes 855 blocks of space, and it's a 3DS digital only exclusive. Next is a rather obscure horror game, Dementium Remastered. This could just as well be called Dementium Remade, because they actually did remake all the environments and pretty much the entire graphics of the DS original named Dementium the Ward. It's completely in 3D now, replacing the original pre-render backgrounds. And it looks great, increasing the horror vibes a lot because it's more likely to immerse you, especially if you play this the proper way. In bed with headphones and lights turned off all the way at night. That's how you play this. This will actually help because everything is very intentionally dark around you. The flashlight does only the bare minimum for you to find your way. This game is actually a really solid horror survival with decent combat, an intriguing story, and great atmosphere. One thing everyone complains about is that you are forced to turn off the flashlight to use a weapon, which is clunky and makes the combat needlessly hard. But I think this is totally intentional by design, and I respect it. It is true though that this is a very difficult game even in normal mode, especially in boss fights, so be advised. This is not a perfect title by any means, but certainly a great one for fans of horror. It costs $14.99 and occupies 1024 blocks on your 3DS. This remastered is a digital only 3DS exclusive. Now, Steel Diver Sub Wars. This is a severely underrated submarine warfare game made and published by Nintendo. It's a sequel to Steel Diver that came out in physical form, but it's very different gameplay wise. The original was a 2D side-scroller, while Sub Wars is full-on 3D in first person, and there will be a steep learning curve for the control scheme here. You control speed, direction, and depth of your submarine, as well as shoot torpedoes, peek through your periscope, and much more. However difficult it may seem, it's definitely manageable, especially since the game provides two ways to control all this, through regular or touch controls using the levers on each side and the wheel in the middle. You can even control with a hybrid format, which works surprisingly well too. Now, this game is free to play. You have access to the multiplayer mode, which can be played online and offline, and 2 campaign missions for free, so it's a good option to try it out and see if you like it. It's not very heavy, taking 1570 blocks of space, and you can choose to purchase the premium version for $9.99 to get access to the whole campaign that will last you around 5 hours, or twice as much if you go for the extra stuff. It's a slow type of gameplay that won't appeal to everyone, I realize, but I liked it very much and could see it becoming a cult classic or something. Next, Dr. Mario Miracle Cure. I'm counting this as one, but it's actually two games in one with enhanced features. Dr. Mario Virus Buster from the Dr. Mario Online RX WiiWare, now defunct game, and Dr. Luigi with the added features of Miracle Cure. Virus Buster is a mode that changes the gameplay significantly, even more so on the 3DS as you hold the system sideways and use the stylus to turn the pills and drag them. You'll notice that this is much slower than usual, but it's actually much harder as well, because it soon starts dropping rows of 3 pills that become overwhelming very quickly. This is a fun mode, but if you're looking for the classic style Dr. Mario, we also have that here just as in the original, as well as Dr. Luigi, who is an awful doctor, always throwing pills 2 at a time and always arranged in L shapes. He's clearly more concerned about making L's than clearing viruses. But this mode is also fun. The stages are usually less crowded, but the L-shaped pills shake things up nicely. This game is also worth it for the music alone. Great remixes of the classics, although unfortunately we can't choose them before entering a stage. This is a must-have for Dr. Mario fans in my opinion. A great compilation with added features, and it's not very expensive at $8.99. It's also not heavy, occupying 498 blocks on your 3DS. Okay, this one goes beyond the obvious, so if you're a fan of Fire Emblem and plan on playing Fates in the future, pay attention. Also, when it comes to 3DS games with expensive physical copies, nothing beats this one. Fire Emblem Fates Revelation. Revelation is the end of the Fire Emblem Fates story actually, it's not an alternative path, so it's very important if you'd like to play this game in the future. Also, there is a bunch of other DLCs available for download that only become available once you reach Chapter 6 in the story of Conquest or Birthright. Chapter 6 is still in the beginning of the game, it's not too far away, but if you leave this to the last day before the stores close, you're gonna have a stressful time. I'll not get into much detail about these DLCs, it's Fire Emblem, it's at the top of tactical RPGs, you know it. Revelations wraps up the story nicely, and the other DLCs expand on the main story, providing new characters to play, linked to interesting crossover scenarios between Fates and Awakening, and a final scenario focused on the child characters. All downloadable content here is meaty and meaningful. Now, as I said, Revelation does have a physical version, a very rare, very limited, very expensive physical version. It is only available in physical form through the special edition that comes with all 3 scenarios in one cartridge, which is fantastic. But it goes for ludicrous $245 for a complete copy as per price charting, but I couldn't find one for less than $350 on eBay. So the $19.99 for Revelations Digital is looking like a bargain. It takes only 599 blocks on your 3DS because it uses most of the same assets as the game you already own. Meanwhile, the rest of the DLC can be bought in 2 packs. Map Pack 1 goes for $17.99 and takes 1,319 blocks, while Pack 2 goes for $7.99 and takes about 1,200 blocks. The block space may differ depending on what version you have, and if you have them physically or digitally. It's very confusing and everyone says a different thing online, so I'm not positive about this, I apologize. But all the DLCs together shouldn't take more than 3,500 blocks. Next, yet another deeply buried hidden gem, and one that was published by Nintendo this time. Ketzal's Corridors, also known as Speed Through Potzol's Puzzle in Europe. Great names. This game is one of those match the shape of your guy to the shape of the hole, and it's a pretty addictive type of gameplay, that's for sure. You control a stone totem, which is a weird protagonist. The controls are intuitive and there are several collectibles to get and tricks to pull off while matching the shapes. It's not gonna blow anyone away or anything, but it's loads of fun and perfect for short sessions. And it's on the cheap side too, going for $6.99, exclusive on the 3DS and digital only. It's also not too heavy, occupying 275 blocks on your 3DS. And with that, we covered 50 3DS games, and there's a whole bunch more, believe me. So stay tuned, cause next I'll be covering the Wii U, Then I'll go back to the 3DS with one on Virtual Consoles, another one on DSiWare games, yet another for the remaining exclusives, and maybe even one on DLCs. So make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any of that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.